Let me describe Monday, May 4th, in the exact order things happened, because the sequence is the story. 7 in the morning, Eastern Time. U.S. Central Command announces Project Freedom is operational. Guided missile destroyers, 100 plus aircraft, 15,000 service members are in position to guide commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. Trump has called it a humanitarian mission. The CENTCOM commander calls it the most significant naval operation in the region in a generation, 9 in the morning. Iranian forces fire cruise missiles and drones at U.S. flagged ships in the Strait. U.S. attack helicopters fire back. 6 Iranian small boats are sunk. No American ships are struck, according to CENTCOM. Iran state media says an American warship was hit with 2 missiles and had to flee. CENTCOM denies this. 11 in the morning, Iran fires ballistic missiles and cruise missiles and drones at the United Arab Emirates. The UAE's defense ministry says air defenses engaged 12 ballistic missiles, 3 cruise missiles and 4 drones. 3 Indian nationals were wounded. A fire broke out at an oil facility in Fujairah, the emirate on the Gulf of Oman coast that serves as the UAE's primary port outside the Strait of Hormuz. Fujairah is the terminus of the Abu Dhabi crude oil pipeline, the bypass route the UAE uses to export oil without passing through Hormuz. Iran struck the bypass, 2 in the afternoon. UAE missile alerts, 4 of them. The first such alert since the ceasefire was declared on April 7th. UAE residents are told to find shelter. Commercial planes bound for the UAE, including flights to Dubai, the world's busiest international hub, turn around midair. Schools across the UAE close and shift to remote learning. 4 in the afternoon, 2 American-flagged merchant ships successfully transit the Strait of Hormuz. The first successful commercial transits since the war began 66 days ago. CENTCOM announces them as the proof of concept for Project Freedom. Evening, Trump appears on Fox News. Asked about the situation, he says, if Iran attacks any American vessels, they will be blown off the face of the earth. He says the ceasefire may be over, but he is not sure. He says, I can't tell you whether an American attack is imminent. One ceasefire that began April 7th, one day that broke it. I want to spend today explaining what Monday's sequence of events actually means, why it is different from every other day of this war, what Iran's attack on the UAE specifically signals, why 2 ships transiting the Strait matters as much as the military action that surrounded it, and where this goes from here. Let me start with what is genuinely new about Monday, because this war has been escalating gradually for 66 days, but Monday crossed several thresholds simultaneously. The first threshold: the United States sank Iranian military vessels in combat, not interdicted civilian ships, not fired warning shots, sank. 6 boats, American attack helicopters blew up Iranian gunboats. That is the first direct exchange of lethal fire between American and Iranian military forces since the ceasefire was declared on April 7th. The ceasefire ended the bombing campaign, but Monday's sinking of 6 Iranian boats is combat. It is smaller in scale than Operation Midnight Hammer, but it is combat between uniformed military forces of the 2 countries during a period when a ceasefire was supposed to be in effect. CENTCOM says no American vessel was hit. Iran's Fars news agency says an American warship was struck with 2 missiles and fled. One of those accounts is wrong. Both sides have consistent incentives to misrepresent outcomes. America to demonstrate the effectiveness of Project Freedom, Iran to demonstrate its capacity to repel the operation. The truth is probably somewhere in the range of neither side suffering catastrophic loss, with the fog of conflict making the exact damage picture unclear. The second threshold: Iran struck the UAE for the first time since the ceasefire. The UAE has been part of the regional context of this war since February 28th. Iran has fired at UAE targets before, during the initial fighting phase. But after April 7th, the ceasefire brought a halt to strikes on Gulf states, with the notable exception of Israel's continued attacks on Lebanon. Monday ended that halt. Iran fired 12 ballistic missiles, 3 cruise missiles, and 4 drones at the UAE. 15 intercepted by air defense. Fujairah oil facility hit by a drone. 3 people wounded. The UAE issued 4 missile alerts, the first since April 7th. But the specific target matters more than the number of missiles. Iran struck the Fujairah oil facility. Fujairah is the terminus of the Abu Dhabi crude oil pipeline. ADCOP is the bypass route, the pipeline and port system that allows the UAE to export oil without passing through the Strait of Hormuz. It is how the UAE has been maintaining some oil exports despite the Hormuz closure. It is one of the reasons the UAE's economy, while damaged by the war, has not been completely paralyzed. And it is the route that Iran knows reduces the economic pressure on the UAE from Hormuz closure. By striking Fujairah, Iran is saying the bypass does not protect you. If America tries to force open Hormuz, we strike what you have been using to go around it. The third threshold, commercial ships actually transited Hormuz. 2 of them, American flagged, under US military escort. CENTCOM announced this as proof that Project Freedom is working. Trump posted about it. The ships went through. Whatever happened in the combat, 6 Iranian boats sunk, 1 possible American warship hit or not hit, missiles flying in multiple directions, 2 ships transited. This is the most strategically significant fact of Monday, and it is getting the least attention in the breaking news coverage. Because the guidance corridor's entire purpose is to change the Hormuz fact on the ground. Before Monday, no commercial ship had transited Hormuz since the ceasefire began. Iran had shut down the waterway as its primary leverage tool. After Monday, 2 ships have transited under US military protection. The leverage is beginning to crack. If 10 ships transit on Tuesday and 20 on Wednesday, and the transit rate approaches the pre-war level of 100 or more per day, Iran's leverage collapses regardless of how many Iranian boats America sinks. The oil market prices the expected supply, not the current supply. If the market believes Hormuz is reopening under American protection, Brent falls, gas prices fall. The 48% of Americans who told pollsters they would accept a worse deal to end the war start asking why they need any deal at all. Iran's economic pressure tool is neutralized. And the diplomatic proposal, Iran's 14-point plan, the IRGC's bad deal ultimatum, everything loses its leverage. That is why Iran attacked the UAE. Not primarily to damage the UAE, but to signal to every shipping company and every oil market participant watching Monday's events, the transit corridor is not safe. 2 ships went through because America sank the boats that were trying to stop them. The next ships that try to transit will face the same deterrence. Shipping insurance costs will not fall. Shipping companies will not voluntarily resume Hormuz operations just because America says the corridor is open. Fujairah is burning. Commercial airlines turned around mid-air over Dubai. UAE residents are getting missile alerts for the first time in a month. That is Iran's message to the market. Project Freedom has not changed the fundamental risk calculus. Now let me explain Iran's military adventurism framing, because it tells you exactly how Iran is processing Monday's events for international consumption. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said on X, the US and UAE should be wary of being dragged into a quagmire. Recent events in Hormuz make clear there's no military solution to a political crisis. And an anonymous Iranian military official said the Fujairah attack resulted from US military adventurism to create an illegal passage. Military adventurism, illegal passage. No military solution. Iran is not describing itself as attacking the UAE. It is describing itself as responding to America's illegal creation of a passage. The attack on Fujairah, in Iran's framing, is not an aggressive act. It is a defensive response to American aggression in the Strait. And the UAE, in Iran's framing, is collateral damage from its own choice to align with American military adventurism. This framing is designed for the Global South audience, for the UN, for the countries that have been watching this war and deciding which side to position toward in the post-war order. Iran is saying, we are not the ones who started Monday. America created an illegal passage. The UAE helped America. We responded to protect our sovereign control over a waterway that international law says coastal states can manage. We struck the bypass route because America was using it to undermine our position. All of this is America's fault. Whether that argument is persuasive to anyone is a separate question from whether Iran is making it. Iran is making it systematically through every available channel. And the countries that were already sympathetic to Iran's position, those that abstained or voted against the US at the UN, those that refused to join the blockade, are likely to find the military adventurism framing more plausible than the humanitarian corridor framing. Now let me steelman the Trump administration's position on Monday, because the two ships transiting is real and important. Two American flagged commercial ships transited the Strait of Hormuz under US military protection. They reached their destinations. CENTCOM confirmed it. This had not happened since the ceasefire began. Every day before Monday, the strait was effectively closed to commercial shipping that Iran had not pre-approved. Monday changed that fact, at least partially and at least temporarily. If the transit rate increases over the next days and weeks, the economic argument for continued Iranian leverage weakens. If American warships can guarantee safe passage for any vessel that requests it, Hormuz becomes functionally open regardless of Iranian objections. The tolls go uncollected, the leverage evaporates, and Iran faces the choice of either accepting the fait accompli, commerce flows, its leverage is gone, or escalating to a level that restores full closure. Monday's Fujairah strike is Iran trying to prevent the fait accompli without crossing the escalation threshold that brings resumed bombing. Trump's Project Freedom framing is also shrewd domestic politics. He has been under pressure for 66 days of war with rising gas prices and a 61% majority saying it was a mistake. Monday's transit is the first visible evidence of American action producing a positive result. Ships moving, gas prices may begin to fall if transits continue. The political narrative shifts from expensive failed war to successful mission in progress. And Trump's blown off the face of the earth language, while alarming in tone, is consistent with deterrence communication. It tells Iran further attacks on American vessels will produce a response so overwhelming that they are strategically inadvisable. Whether Iran believes this or not, the statement establishes the American commitment. Here's where the steelman collapses. Two ships transit one day. Under maximum US military force, guided missile destroyers, attack helicopters, 100 aircraft, 15,000 service members. Those two transits required sinking 6 Iranian boats, which required the biggest US naval operation in the region in a generation. The ratio is not sustainable at scale. To reopen Hormuz to its pre-war traffic of over 100 vessels per day, America cannot sink 6 Iranian boats per 2 transits. That is 300 Iranian boats per day. Iran does not have 300 boats, which means either the transit rate exceeds what Iran can physically contest, which is the success scenario, or Iran shifts to missiles and mines and drones rather than gunboats, which is what Monday already showed Iran is doing when it hit the UAE with 15 projectiles. Fujairah is burning. UAE schools are remote. Commercial planes turned around. The bypass route is damaged. The toll Iran extracted from Monday's 2 transits was measured in Emirati missile alerts and wounded Indian nationals at an oil facility in the Gulf of Oman. Project Freedom produced 2 successful transits and a missile barrage at a third-party nation. That is not the ratio that reopens Hormuz. It is the ratio that defines what the next phase of escalation looks like. What I want you to watch from here, whether the transit rate increases on Tuesday and Wednesday, or whether shipping companies observe Monday's events and conclude the corridor is not yet safe enough to resume voluntary operations. If the transit rate stays low, 1 or 2 ships per day under heavy military protection, the leverage argument Iran is making holds. If the transit rate climbs toward 10 or 20 per day, the leverage argument begins to fail. Watch whether Iran escalates further at Fujairah or strikes other UAE targets. The bypass pipeline is the specific target that matters. If Iran disables the full ADCOP pipeline system, the UAE loses its ability to export without Hormuz. That would bring massive pressure from Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states on the US to either protect the bypass or negotiate. And it would push Brent toward the $150 range that Goldman Sachs has described, Watch whether Trump's can't tell you response to whether an American attack is imminent becomes more specific in the next 48 hours. If the ceasefire is effectively over and combat has resumed, the 60-day war powers resolution clock begins again. Collins and Murkowski and Curtis will be back from recess next week. The constitutional question resumes, and watch whether Iran's 14-point proposal remains on the table or is formally withdrawn in response to Monday's military exchange. If Iran says the proposal is withdrawn because America resumed hostilities, the diplomatic track closes. If Iran says the proposal still stands, but America must stop the military operation before talks can continue, the diplomatic track remains technically open while being militarily contested in the same waterway. US sank 6 boats. Iran hit UAE with 15 missiles. 2 ships got through. Fujairah is burning. UAE schools are closed. Commercial planes turned around. Gas is at 446. And the ceasefire that began April 7th has been tested beyond what a ceasefire can sustain. Monday answered the question I said Sunday would answer. The guidance corridor's Monday test produced combat, not passage. Watch what happens Tuesday. If you found this useful, push back on it in the comments. I will see you in the next one. Let me add 3 more details that complete the picture of Monday. The South Korean government confirmed an explosion and fire on a South Korean-operated Panama flag cargo ship in the Strait of Hormuz. 24 crew members, 6 Koreans and 18 from other countries. No casualties. The fire in the left side engine was later extinguished. South Korea's foreign ministry called it a possible attack. The cause was not immediately known. This is the 3rd vessel affected in Monday's operations. The first 2 were American flag transiting ships that successfully passed through. And this 3rd is a vessel caught in the combat environment. South Korea called it a possible attack. Iran did not claim it. America did not attribute it. But a South Korean operated vessel is now part of Monday's events. UAE schools are closed through Friday. The UAE Ministry of Education said schools and nurseries will operate remotely from Tuesday through Friday out of concern for the safety of students and all those working in the education sector. This is the first school closure announcement due to Iranian missile threat in the UAE since the early days of the war before the April 7th ceasefire. The closure covers the entirety of the UAE school system, private and public, international and domestic. Families with children in Dubai and Abu Dhabi are doing the calculation that families near conflict zones always do. When does the school stay closed and when does it reopen? And what does that depend on? And Araghchi, after the night's events, posted on X, both the US and the UAE should be wary of being dragged back into quagmire. Quagmire. The same word Araghchi used in Islamabad, in Oman, in Russia. Iran keeps using quagmire. Not victory, not liberation. Quagmire, the trap that swallows armies. The thing that America experienced in Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan, the outcome, that historical pattern, says awaits any military power that commits to an unwinnable engagement. Iran is not promising it will win. It is promising America will be stuck. US sank 6 boats. Iran hit UAE with 15 projectiles. 2 ships got through. South Korean vessel hit. UAE schools closed. Commercial planes turned around midair over Dubai. Fujairah oil facility burning. Gas at 446. Araghchi said quagmire. The ceasefire of April 7th is effectively over. What it has become is a lower intensity conflict with occasional escalation. Not the bombing and nuclear strikes of February and March, but not the hostilities terminated that the White House told Congress last Friday either. It is something in between, something the language of ceasefire was not designed to describe. Watch Tuesday. If you found this useful, push back on it in the comments. I will see you in the next one. One more section one want to add. The racial problem, because it is the most important strategic argument about whether Project Freedom can actually work. 2 ships transited, 1 day. Under maximum American military force, guided missile destroyers, attack helicopters, 100 aircraft, 15,000 service members. Those 2 transits required sinking 6 Iranian gunboats and repelling a barrage of cruise missiles and drones directed at the UAE and at American ships. The combat to transit ratio is 3 Iranian boats per ship per day and 15 UAE projectiles as a strategic tax on the operation. To reopen Hormuz to its pre-war traffic of over 100 vessels per day, this ratio cannot hold. America cannot sink 300 Iranian boats per day. Iran does not have 300 boats. So either the transit rate increases faster than Iranian resistance can keep up with, which is the success scenario, or Iran shifts its resistance from gunboats to missiles and mines and long-range strikes on bypass infrastructure, which is exactly what Monday showed Iran doing when it hit Fujairah. The successful trajectory looks like this. Gunboat resistance exhausted on day 1. Transit rate climbs to 10, 20, 50 per day. Iran faces a choice between activating its bigger weapons or accepting the fait accompli. The unsuccessful trajectory looks like this. Shipping companies observe Monday's events and conclude the corridor is not yet safe enough for commercial operations without direct military escort. Transit rate stays low. Iran's missile and drone attacks on bypass infrastructure continue. Oil stays above 120, gas stays above 440, and the economic cost of Project Freedom falls on American consumers while the military cost falls on American warships. Which trajectory Monday initiates will be visible by Wednesday. If 10 ships transit Tuesday and 20 transit Wednesday, the corridor is opening. If Tuesday produces the same 2 or 3 under heavy military protection, the corridor is holding but not transforming. The ceasefire is effectively over. The guidance corridor is open but contested. The bypass is partially damaged. And the question of whether Project Freedom succeeds is a question about shipping company risk calculations, not just military capacity. Monday answered Sunday's test question. The answer was combat, not easy passage. Now Tuesday asked the follow-up, and here is the constitutional question that Monday reopened. The White House sent Congress a formal letter on Friday saying hostilities have terminated. On Monday, American attack helicopters sank 6 Iranian military vessels in combat. American flagships transited under fire. Iranian missiles struck a UAE oil facility. A South Korean vessel was hit by something. Trump said Iran will be blown off the face of the earth. Senator Tim Kaine, who has introduced the War Powers Resolution 6 times and seen it fail 6 times, said last week that the hostilities terminated letter doesn't pass the laugh test. Monday is the laugh test. American forces engaging in lethal combat during a period the White House formally described to Congress as terminated hostilities is not a legal technicality. It is a constitutional confrontation that Collins and Murkowski and Curtis will have to address when they return from recess next week. Does Monday restart the 60-day war powers clock? If hostilities terminated on April 7th and resumed on May 4th, does the clock start fresh from May 4th, or does the original clock from February 28th govern? The Trump administration's theory, ceasefire, pause the clock, therefore it is still paused, does not hold after Monday. The ceasefire is effectively over. The pause is over. The clock that the White House said was paused was running on Saturday night, and it is still running tonight. That is the constitutional story underneath the missiles and the boats and the burning oil facility. America is in combat. The president told Congress it was not in combat 4 days ago. Both of those things are true on the same Tuesday morning. Watch what Kaine says. Watch what Murkowski says when she returns. Watch what the administration's next war powers communication to Congress says, if it sends one at all. US sank 6 boats. Iran hit UAE. 2 ships got through. Ceasefire is effectively over, and the constitutional clock is running again whether the White House acknowledges it or not. If you found this useful, push back on it in the comments. I will see you in the next one.